Today's edition of Back Roads of Illinois. We were bringing you lasted for farming sources and information sponsored by AgriGold. This is the Markets Club podcast on today. He is in 29 years of experience with the agricultural commodities markets, especially in the grain sector and livestock. Here is Brian Grete from Comstock Investment in Iowa. We were talking to Brian on today. This been the Markets Club podcast. He is in 29 years of experience with the agricultural commodities markets, especially in the grain sector and livestock. Here is Brian Grete from Comstock Investment in Iowa. Hey, Brian, how are you? And glad to have you on today.
I'm doing well, and it's glad to be back with you, Caesar. I haven't been on here for a while, but no, it's good to be back.
Great to hear from you. Brian, let's discuss about these private crop tours for this summer, especially with the Midwest crop tour. What is your thoughts with the yield for this summer?
Well, obviously, it's been a tremendous growing season, and we got off to a really strong start. August weather is the primary factor when it comes to the corn crop, and we had relatively mild temperatures. It was warm, but it wasn't excessively warm by any means across the major U.S. corn growing areas. And then we had plentiful moisture, and so that rainfall really gave the corn crop a strong start through pollination in the early portion of grain fill. Now, as we moved into August, it got a little bit drier in some of the areas, especially in the eastern corn belt. But we had built so much yield potential ahead of that it's going to end up to be a record. It's just a matter of how big it is. And I know USDA backed down a little bit here in September from where they were in August, but still well above last year's record. And so it'll finish above there. It's just a matter of how much it continues to back down from the September estimate through the final estimate in January. On the soybean side of things, a lot of pods out there, obviously, and so the crop did its job to that point. Now the question is, did Mother Nature provide enough moisture and rainfall through August and into early September for the crop to fill out all those pods? And that's always the question with the soybean crop. But it has really strong yield potential from a factory standpoint. And by that, I mean the pods that are set on plants. It's a matter of how much those pods weigh and how many beans are in the pods and that type of thing when all's said and done. We'll probably see the yield back down just a little bit from September into the final number in January, just because of the dryness that was seen, especially in the eastern and southeastern corn belt, and then down into the mid-south.
What was your thoughts on the world supply and demand report for this morning?
Yeah, so on the world side of things, I think that probably got glossed over quite a bit, to be honest with you. The primary focus, I think, was on yield and production on the U.S. side of things, and then domestic ending stocks for the 25-26 marketing year would be secondary, and then in third, and I'm not sure how much the market traded it, would be the global ending stocks, and I think the 4 million ton increase in wheat ending stocks on the global side of things really did hold the wheat market back because it didn't follow the corn and soybean markets to the upside nearly as much. And so, the global exporters, major exporters, have a lot of supply right now, and that creates a lot of headwinds for the U.S. in terms of exports and from a price perspective.
What is the numbers again for this morning?
On the corn production side, we had 16.814 billion bushels of production, and that was up 72 million bushels from last month. The yield came in at 186.7 bushels per acre, down 2.1 bushels per acre. The surprise was that USDA found more harvested acres and almost 1.4 million acres more there was the increase, and that's why your production went up despite the yield coming down. Much the same story on the soybean side of things. 4.3 billion bushels of production. That was up 9 million bushels from last month. The yield ticked down by a tenth of a bushel to 53 and a half bushels per acre. But USDA found another 209,000 acres of harvested soybeans. And so that was the driver there. Ending stocks wise, 2.11 billion bushels for corn domestically for new crop, soybeans at 300 million bushels, and wheat at 844 million bushels. And so I think that those are the primary ones. The interesting one there is probably that the wheat ending stocks came down 25 million bushels, but on the price projection for 25-26, USDA lowered it, and that's reflective of that world situation, which I talked about previously.
Sure. I'm wondering about the fundamentals with the corn markets. Maybe we could change about that. However, I've been on the farm progress show indicator. Farmers are facing to have a farm crisis in the horizon. Do you think that it will be an economic downturn in the farm sector?
Yeah, so obviously things are tight here in 2025, and as we look forward into next year, projected to be tight again. So the margins are slim and negative for some producers. The input costs are not going to come down much, if any, and I think there's a risk that they could go up. These extra bushels that USDA found in September actually helps the producer at this point in time. You have more bushels to sell, and so I know prices aren't nearly where the farmer wants them to be, but the reality is that unless we go on some sort of unexpected rally that's driven by demand, and corn has demand to back itself. Soybeans just don't have the demand right now because the Chinese market is lacking, and we just don't have any new crop Chinese soybean purchases on the books at the moment, and so that's my biggest concern on soybeans is the lack of export demand to China as we sit here in early September, and corn. We're well ahead of pace on the corn export bookings for the 25-26 marketing year. So I think the outlook on the corn side is just a little bit stronger.
Do you feel the farm crisis and very soon on the future, Brian?
It's hard to say exactly how everything will shake out. I think interest rates will be coming down. That should help just a little bit on some of the operating loans and things like that. The input side of things probably going to be really sticky, meaning that I just don't see prices backing off much. The health of the overall economy within the United States is probably weakening. We saw the jobs numbers, the revisions to last year's data, big ones there that would indicate that the labor market is weaker than anticipated, and therefore the U.S. economy is weaker. And so we face some headwinds from that perspective, in addition to the agricultural headwinds that are faced. And so I think it's probably going to be a little bit of a tough go here for a while for agriculture. We need something positive to happen in a meaningful way.
Yeah, we will see for next couple months.
Yeah, I would agree
What
with
is
that.
your thoughts on the balance?
My thoughts on the balance sheets, I guess, are that we're amply supplied on the corn side, over 2.1 billion bushels of ending stocks projected for 25-26. we do have that export demand that I talked about, so that'll help out some there. But we just have a lot of bushels to chew through. On the soybean side, amply supplied as well at 300 million bushels of ending stocks, and so my biggest concern, like I said, is the lack of demand to the Chinese market. Now, if we can get China back and we get some sort of a trade deal here late in the fall or early 2026, then there's some hope. But for the soybean side of things, the new crop, South American crop, will be coming on board early in 2026, and so we're into a limited window here for the exports. We need to start making hay and get a trade deal with China done pretty quickly, I think.
How about the wheat markets for right now?
Yeah, so the wheat market's an interesting one. It's wheat has really been an anchor on the corn market, and we're trading near the contract lows at the moment. It just can't get off the mat, and a lot of that's tied back to what I said previously about the global stocks. The major exporters just hold a lot of supply at the moment, and so the U.S. isn't going to be number one, number two, number three, not even number four, probably when it comes to the global export side of things. And that's really going to hold us back from a price perspective.
What is your final thoughts about the fundamentals with these grains markets?
So I think trade is going to be a big one moving forward. We need some sort of a fundamental boost to give the marketplace a better price outlook. And the easiest way to get that would be some sort of a trade deal with China. Whether that happens or not in the near term, we're looking at November 10th, I think, is the next deadline for that 90-day tariff truce. And if nothing gets done by then who knows what happens. I guess they can kick the can down the road a little bit further and decide to carry on the truce or extend the truce. They can decide that, yes, there's a trade deal in place, and that would be the most bullish scenario in my perspective. The worst case scenario would be as if we don't get anything done and we escalate the tariff war with China. And in that situation, we would face major headwinds from a price perspective, in my opinion. So we need to get something done on the trade side of things pretty soon here for the soybean market first, but also for corn. A rising tide would raise all boats. And so even wheat would be supported in that scenario, I think.
Where people can find you for your consulting services for their grain and livestock markets.
Yeah, so the easiest way to contact us is at commstock.com. So COMMSTOCK.com. And we have a team of expert risk management professionals that I work with, and I provide them the news and analysis and data that they need to provide excellent risk management for producers.
Thanks, Brian. I enjoyed our conversation for today.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure. Thank you for having me on once again, Caesar.
This is Brian Greek from Comstock On Today.